So anyway, for some reason, Dwight has got this. He's got the other shows opening in there. I don't know, just loaded in here. I don't know. All right, everybody. Welcome to Dr. Politics and the Political Architect Show. Dwight is off in Ocean City. Actually, Chris, I don't know what is the state convention going on over there or something, or
it's the Maryland Federation of Women Republicans.
Oh, okay, federal, okay, MFRW. Okay. I didn't even know that Dwight went to those things. Okay.
I didn't even know he's identifying now as a woman.
Oh.
Honestly.
Yeah. Luckily, he probably never watched the show. So.
Oh no, I didn't get that way. That was an old joke when I would go push my books and I'd go to the women's clubs and I'd have to remind everybody, no, I'm not identifying yet as a woman. So I'd be Danielle. Is that what I'd be? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway.
something like that.
What's the female version of David?
Yeah. Well, it's good to have everybody together tonight. It's always good to see you, David. Good to have you on, Chris. All right. So before we go into the news here, just gonna say it's getting a little chilly. I got a little surprise this morning when I go out to the gym. So I leave the house about 4:30 a.m. or thereabouts. And I was surprised to see a kind of a light frost on my car. And I'm like, it's like, I'm not quite ready for that yet. It's like, I'd rather see that in December. I don't know. But it definitely is seeing the change there. We see the colors of the leaves change and everything like that. But I'm not, I want my winter or whatever that is to be delayed as much as possible. I don't know about you guys.
I agree. Yeah. I don't like it. I don't like the cold.
I've got to be honest. I've spent so much time in warm climates, particularly the desert. I really look forward to the season. So I as much as it's going to be uncomfortable, I look forward to the change, and I kind of embrace the cold these days.
Oh, I mean, look, I don't mind the change of seasons. I just sometimes I just wish winter, because I'm getting to be old. I'd like winter to be a little shorter. I'd like less snow, less ice, less stuff for me to have to worry about cleaning up. And everything like that. It's one thing to be 40 years old and, being able to, but now at my age, it's almost ready to collect Social Security next year and everything like that. It's like, I really don't need this.
Yeah,
but it's, I would rather have this than just, this whole, just calling them like one season or whatever, yeah. I mean, look, my sister-in-law lives in Arizona, and they don't get a whole lot of chance to get anything below 80. It's pretty rare any time of the year, so it's visiting out there is just not really that pleasant from a weather standpoint.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got Trump derangement syndrome reaching new heights as far as I'm concerned here. This whole thing about the White House ballroom, Trump's ballroom, has got the liberals and the left and others just in a complete tizzy. David, you wrote a Substack column on it. Do you want to talk about this, and we'll discuss it a little more?
Yeah, it was basically the Trump derangement syndrome now has hit home renovations, although the title was not kind of misleading because it's not the White House residence that we're talking about. It's the East Wing, which was put in 1942, I think, was built right there. Well, here's the reason. The bottom line. The ballroom will forever be a physical reminder of Donald Trump's presidency, and that's why I don't like it. And it's like Teddy Rose, Harry Truman, and we call it the Truman balcony. Even to this day, it's known as the Truman balcony. So it's linked to him, and the ballroom would be linked to Trump. So they don't like it, and I think that's sort of the main thing. But they're not touching the residence or anything like that. And the other point is that, yes, the White House is historic, but it's also a working campus. It's an office. It's one family lives there, but it's in use. It's not like you're bulldozing something at Mount Vernon or something, which is, of course, preserved for history. The White House is an ongoing history. And from Trump's standpoint, the East Wing, which are mostly, I believe, offices, Trump would rather have the ballroom there and a better use of space. So that's a decision he made. I understand people may criticize that, but that's his decision. And I have heard they do need the ballroom though, because in terms of big state dinners and events, they don't really have the room for a lot of people. So he's made that decision. I think future presidents will be happy that he did it. So I think it'll be good. But I do wonder, I didn't put this in the column, but I do wonder if for many years now, if Democrats, when they try to run and get the nomination, if they promise, and if elected, I will tear down the Trump ballroom, and add that to the Democratic Party platform. That's one of the things. I don't know, but I think it's great, and I'm happy with it, and it's fun to see the media going crazy about it.
Chris, you have anything thoughts on this ballroom issue?
I think you said it well at the opening, which is this is a new level of Trump derangement syndrome. I couldn't agree more. It's a working building. In other words, there is a historic significance, but I think there is absolutely a need for a global status, world-class ballroom to host state dinners. And I thought that the fact that they're doing this to what was previously, I think, first lady offices and a few other staffing offices, it's a necessary and appropriate upgrade. I certainly hope that this does not become a Democrat platform issue of destroying the East Wing, eliminating the Trump ballroom, because we have to learn to move forward. And I can tell you, for having just left an organization that is steeped in tradition, opposed to anything new or different, even the Marine Corps recognizes the need to update standards, make changes, and then to have a living organization that's not so beholden to the past that we can't respond to or prepare for what's next. And I couldn't agree more. Every president after Trump is going to celebrate having this on site and having it available to host global events.
Yeah. And I took the liberty. I just put my link there. Check the columns.
Yeah, I'm glad that you did that, because I don't know where that is on this thing, but
okay.
I know you have control as well, so that's good. I was going to tell you, if you knew where that was, go ahead and put that up. Yeah, look, I mean, the Truman balcony thing, as I was reading this, I mean, when they put that in, I mean, apparently Truman got backlash for that too. But now it's a part of the White House that, it's like, it's kind of iconic, right? I mean, it's there. And so we will, as you're saying, we're going to learn to live with this. I mean, it's going to be there, hopefully, for generations to come. Future presidents will benefit, by this move. I mean, Trump apparently, I guess he offered to do something like this when Obama was in office and was turned down. Yeah. This is being built with private money and maybe some Trump money, be thrown in on top of that to get this done. It is large, granted, but, it makes a lot of sense, in terms of, rather than having these tents out on the White House lawn for events, which is really kind of tacky if you think about it. You're bringing in dignitaries, you're holding state dinners, you're going to put people out, on the lawn as well. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So, I mean, this is where, Trump's experience running hotels and everything like this is like, no, we need to fix this. Yes. Will it be a Democrat talking point or some sore point with them because it's Trump? I mean, the thing I kept thinking in the back of my mind is like, suppose Trump takes one more step and says, by the way, we're going to call this the Donald Trump ballroom, White House or something like that. Is that'll really make their heads explode. I mean, they can always change it later, but I think it's just something funny that the Democrats, and they don't understand this. I mean, I'm sure we've all looked at our social media posts, and we've got friends on both the right and the left. And there are plenty of people I know have talked about, they have been to multiple White House events, and they say how much this is needed. There are a lot of people who've never set foot in the White House, and all they have is what the media tells them. So, they're just kind of drawn by that, and they're thinking like, oh, well, look at what the meltdown on The View, right? The ladies of The View they're kind of like, well, this 250 million dollars, we've got the government shut down, we've got inflation, kind of running high, couldn't we use money? This is different. That's you're mixing apples and oranges here. We're not talking about the same thing.
Yeah, it's privately funded, and liberals usually like free things, but now they don't want a free thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, last week we were just talking about how the mayor of Baltimore purchased a $165,000 SUV using taxpayer money. Nobody bats an eye. And I understand we're talking hundreds of thousands versus hundreds of millions, but you're right. This is privately funded. This is an upgrade to a building that needs an upgrade. And it's just amazing the selective outrage and the misguided nature of this. They're okay with, the California state buildings being rebuilt, and as I understanding, having massive cost overruns. But whenever this is privately funded into the White House, suddenly this is the end of the world. It's just, it's really unfortunate that we can't sort of have some level of common sense of, okay, what warrants outrage, what warrants some level of review, and what can we just move on from? And this is clearly one that I think everyone should just move on from and get back to the business of reopening the government and solving problems.
Yeah, right. And plus, give Trump credit. You may disagree with his politics. I know we don't, but they should look at it this way. He's a builder, successful builder, and that's kind of his expertise. And who knows, he's had some good luck on the foreign policy right now. So maybe when he says you need a nice ballroom, well, maybe that's the case. So
yeah.
Well, look, I mean, how many presidents can go out there and then raise 250 million, $300 million to do a project like this?
Yeah,
I think Trump is extremely unique in this, his ability to do this. And I think that also rubs Democrats, liberals the wrong way. It's just that, it didn't take him very long really to line up the support and go ahead and do this. And they're also upset, I think, probably with once he kind of got it all done, the swiftness of this action, right? I mean, he wasn't wasting any time. This is, we realize, I think, what we're seeing with the Trump administration is that there's a lot of stuff going on, right? There's, right and left, boom, 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 boom. He knows he's got a limited amount of time, and so he's taking action, and he's really trying to. He's got whatever agenda he's got, and he says, "Here's my point. I need to get this done before I leave office in 2029, and so therefore I'm just really kind of bulldozing my way through this stuff, and using his connections, his ability to how he can negotiate and do things, and we this is something we will never see again in the presidency. I think Donald Trump is extremely unique in this and his ability to do these kinds of things. He gets it done. I mean, there are things he gets wrong. I mean, every president, there's stuff that drives me up a wall with President Trump, but overall, the country moves in the right direction, right? So that's a big positive for us. And I think, except for these whiny Democrats and others, I think what'll happen, just kind of the same as happened with a lot of other things, is that as time goes along, this will become kind of a distant memory as Trump fades from the memory, as we get more presidents, we get along there. They're just going to not really think about that. I mean, how many people really think about Harry Truman and that in the balcony? I surely don't, and anything else that's done, anything else any other presidents have done, I haven't really thought about it. It's just, you just kind of take it as part of what's going on there. And once again, as you guys pointed out, that, the White House, the main part of the White House is the real historic part. They have these other, we have the West Wing, we have the East Wing, but they're not, they're not residences, they're working offices and other things that are going on there. So it's different, but the media doesn't delineate that. They don't really tell you that. And so they make it seem like, oh my gosh, this historic part of it. It's like this had been there from the beginning. No, it wasn't.
Yeah. They should have made a show called The East Wing. Maybe people would
that might have helped. That might have helped. So the other part of, in conjunction with this, we also have the No Kings rally, right? All the demonstrations. Some apparently reportedly 7 million people. I don't lend a whole lot of credence to numbers like this anymore because they can be manipulated. We're now in an age of where uh, you can put an old photo up or something else and claim it's that demonstration. Both sides do it. Probably the left probably does it more than the right does it, but there were people out there, and demonstrating. Um, though it seems to be that a lot of them really weren't sure why they were there. Uh, you know, they kind of glommed onto there's some kind of anti-Trump message, so we'll join. We don't, no kings. Uh, you know, if we really had a king, a really monarchy, you wouldn't have these demonstrations to begin with. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, where are we going with this? I mean, are we going to see more of these rallies? Are these people totally delusional? Do the Democrats seem to think that this is giving them some kind of momentum, but I don't see this. I don't see that this gives them any momentum or any traction on anything because this is just about once again message. Donald Trump is bad.
Yeah.
We don't like Trump. Voila, that's it.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. I think fundamentally it's just sort of the anti-Trump thing to do, and uh, well, it's sort of the same thing in a way with the balcony, the ballroom. I mean, most of them probably would be okay with a ballroom, but they associate with Donald Trump, so then it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just am struck by the taking this term of a king or no kings, because as you mentioned, if we had a king, they wouldn't have the rally. But I don't know, a guy like Trump who's been so persecuted, prosecuted, maligned by the free press, media. I don't know. To think of him as like a king is kind of weird. But anyway,
Yeah.
I can't figure it out. But I think it's something about his personality or something rubs people really the wrong way, and he's kind of like that horrible bossy boss, I guess, to people. But I don't know. It's a weird psychological or a weird dynamic or something that when he talks, it just sets off a certain reaction for some people.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see this as momentum at all. I'm all for protest. I think that's it's a fundamental right to people to get out and peacefully protest. And I think if that's how they choose to spend their time, so be it. They still have not come up with a viable alternative that is going to help people. All they've managed to do as a platform is oppose Trump, to say no to solutions that arguably people voted for or people are in support of. And I think as this progresses, as we start seeing that there's going to be some bumps in the road, as we sort of reset the global order, as we reset our reliance on a vulnerable global supply chain, as we focus on readiness in the military, we're going to start turning a corner, and they can protest all they like. These numbers are still almost negligible when you start looking at the will of a country and you start looking at the number of people that support this direction. So I see this as really a gasp, a last gasp, an act of desperation and of no real consequence, and absolutely not indicative of momentum. If anything, the exact opposite. This to me is a clear sign of desperation, that they have nothing to say. They don't have a counter argument, so they just have to throw a tantrum.
Yeah, I mean, we are about a year away from the midterm elections, and I don't see really much of anything that the Democrats have in the way of trying to retake the House or retake the Senate at this point in time. You know, the numbers of Democrats versus Republicans that are up for reelection in the Senate, favors the Democrats probably on that basis. But we've had a number of candidates, who've retired. There's some open seats. There's some things. Who knows? And there'll be some competitive seats. I think the Republicans should retain the Senate without a problem. The House with the redistricting, if we continue to see that push through some of this early redistricting, I think that favors the Republicans, so that gives them a chance to retain the House in 2026. But they just, they're also looking at 2028, and there's just nothing there. Gavin Newsom is, he's definitely trying to make a run for the White House. But but on what basis, would anybody want to vote for Gavin Newsom? Kamala Harris has hemmed and hawed, but why would anybody support her? There isn't anybody out there really that I think will catch the imagination of the American public, uh, much less capture the imagination and get along, the big support of even Democrats at this stage. There's, I think they're just struggling. Is J.B. Pritzker trying to throw his hat in the ring now? Uh, you know, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there isn't a clear front runner. They don't really have. The Democrats have suffered for a long time, I think, too. As we see that, they don't have a bench. They don't have a deep bench, when it comes to the office, running for president, and you know, coming up in 2028. I mean, this gives JD Vance the clear path at this point to take the nomination, and not, if not the presidency, unless something else gets screwed up along the way. Now, I say this only because Republicans in my lifetime are just infamous about just screwing up. I mean, they have opportunity to just to solidify gains that they've had, and the next thing you know, they do something, and they lose ground, and then they lose control of the house or whatever, and then we're back to square one. We're back to rebuilding again, and then trying to recapture what we lost. So that always makes me wonder a little bit, or gives me a little bit of fear, because the media and the Democrats, they're still very tight, uh, and the Republicans have got they have never done a very good job of dealing with the media, though. I think now, as we move on to the shutdown here, we've got 24 days in. The Republicans have held pretty firm, and I think they've done a good job this time of pinning the blame on the Democrats for not reopening the government. Usually the Republicans wind up taking most of the blame on this, and they will suffer at the polls. I think we're seeing here, and what was interesting, a few days ago, Harry Enton, the poll master from CNN, had a poll up there, and he compared the shutdown during Trump's first administration, where he lost 3 points at roughly the same point in time, to now where he's up a point. So somebody, people are realizing that maybe this isn't as bad as everybody, the media and the liberals say it is. Thoughts?
Yeah, not to interrupt, Chris. I did write a column as well, and talking about that very point, and also that traditionally, I theorize, why do Republicans always seem to get the blame for shutdowns? I think part of it is that people have this impression that Republicans don't like the government. Therefore, if it's shut down, Republicans are to blame, and Democrats, well, they like government. Therefore, if it gets shut down, you can't blame them. But in this case, it really is Democrats that are shutting it down by blocking the vote in the Senate. And I think people are starting to figure that out. And that's why the gap is closed so much between blaming Democrats and Republicans. Ordinarily, it wouldn't be that close. Republicans would be getting the blame. So that's why I think this time is a little bit different. But I also wonder if maybe there is a hidden motive of Democrats. They want to get rid of the filibuster. And maybe this is the opportunity to force Republicans to get rid of the filibuster. An example is, over the weekend, Ro Khanna, he suggested, Democrat congressman from California, that Republicans just get rid of the filibuster and keep the government open. And so did Fetterman. So I don't know if that's kind of like, I think maybe a subplot. I don't think that's the reason why the Democrats are pushing for the showdown, but maybe that's something that they would like to see if they can get Republicans to cave on that. So I think it'd be a mistake for Republicans to do it, but I also, because I like the filibuster, but I also wonder, in our politically very partisan times, the filibuster works because there were enough Democrats and Republicans that will work together. Today, I don't know if there any are, because they worry about their political future if they work with the other side. So therefore, I'm not sure that the filibuster works. I hope it can still work, but I'm not so sure. But anyway, that's just a few of my thoughts on it.
I agree that I think that they did not enter this with any intent to negotiate. If you start looking at, I think they came up with the most outrageous counteroffer, this 1.5 trillion of refunding everything that had just been defunded. It was a disingenuous. They wanted to make an impossible task to force, I think, exactly what you described. Either it will force the hand of the Republicans to eliminate the filibuster, or they prolong it so long that inevitably the pain will be felt by the Republicans, because they'll somehow, based on that mental gymnastics of the Republicans, have the House and the Senate, and despite the need for 60, it's their fault. Their hope is that there'll be so much pain from an extended shutdown that that Republicans will suffer at the midterm. But I was going to go back to your earlier point. Hands down, the most talented Democrat leader right now is Shapiro in Pennsylvania. The reason why I think he's such a smart guy, the fact that he turned down being Kamala's vice president tells me he's a pretty smart guy. He's got outstanding judgment. He knew that was a sinking ship. I think they wanted him in the hopes that he could restore any hope of a serious candidacy for Kamala. And I think he saw the writing on the wall. So that he would be my default Democrat leader in 28. Now, he's got his own issues within the Democrat Party as far as whether he would be their ideal candidate. But hands down, he is the most talented. He's, I think, the smartest politician and just a very smart individual. And he's an outstanding communicator. The last thing I would add to this, I saw that there's been several bills that have been introduced, or at least proposed. One, that if there is a shutdown, Congress does not get paid. Two, if there's a shutdown, that they will continue to fund essential requirements. Congress will not get paid, and they work 7 days a week until it's resolved. I like that one as well. But I think this idea that the folks that are sitting in Congress not feeling the pain of what they're imposing on others is just plain wrong. I hope we're able to get through this without compromising the filibuster. And I hope either in the immediate consequence or after the midterm, whenever we hold on to the House, and ideally I'll be in Congress, that we will vote to penalize the folks in Congress before we penalize our essential services and elements of the government. And that we set up a structure so that certain parts of the government continues to run, they continue to get paid, and it's Congress that stays there 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, and negotiates until they get a resolution. Because this just can't go on. You can't play politics with people's lives. And in this case, I think this is pure political theater. I do not think there is a clear objective that's going to benefit anyone in this country. This is all about power, and this is all about trying to reset a narrative of just a terrible platform and a terrible approach from the Democrats, really since the last election. So I really hope out of this we put together some kind of a solution so that Americans don't suffer at the hands of misguided political agendas.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, they are. I mean, the Democrats are being very disingenuous with this whole thing. Anyway, as you said, I mean, they're now trying to play on the whole, healthcare premiums, skyrocketing and everything like this. And they have to remember that, these are what the main part of this are the enhanced subsidies that Biden, and the Democrats push through. And it's not all subsidies. There was a very good column in the Wall Street Journal kind of describing how, if you break this out, that, most people actually won't see the kinds of increases that have been proposed out there, and then you think also about Obamacare. You go back to when Obama pushed Obamacare, talked about, you're going to save $2,500, right? And all this kind of stuff. And I remember that, and I never saw that reduction, back then. I was like, where's my $2,500 savings? All I was seeing, running a company was increases all the way through. I never saw anything like this. These Obamacare exchanges, are kind of a joke. I mean, we pour a lot of money into these exchanges, but to me, all it does is distort the whole healthcare market.
Yes.
These companies know that, hey, look, we'll provide services because we know that the government, in essence, is going to write us a check for 80% or whatever. I mean, the part of this is that, they took the cap off the income, right? The enhanced subsidies. There was a cap. I guess it was what, 4 times the poverty rate or whatever. But then they basically took this off. So all of a sudden you had this huge amount of people that now qualified for Obamacare subsidies. And I think even the Congressional Budget Office, they came out and they said, I think they discovered was 2.3 million people were on there that weren't supposed to be on there, should never have qualified. So this is what happens when you expand these government programs. When they expanded Medicaid, same problem. They add all these people, but the expense becomes enormous. But there are a lot of people who don't need to be there. There are a lot of people who are on these exchanges or getting health care paid for that actually never use it, but the government continues to write checks, to the insurance companies. So the system is definitely broken, and it's definitely worse now than it was before. Problem is that we've had Obamacare in since 2008, so it's hard to get rid of Obamacare, as a whole piece. The Republicans have been, they've been kind of chipping away at it over time. But it's hard to take away things that people are used to getting, right? And so this is the difficulty. But I think the Republicans have done a fairly good job of trying to show, no, we can't afford to do this. I mean, when you start looking, if you keep pounding away, saying, look, we now have $38 trillion in debt. When Obama came to office, I could have sworn it was closer to 16. So it continues to balloon. I mean, the first Trump administration, he didn't really care about spending, and then we had COVID, and that just blew everything up and everything, like this. And as Biden took over, he didn't seem to care about spending. So now we're spending a tremendous amount of money on all kinds of things, and we're out of control. So we run these huge deficits every year. And now we've got $38 trillion in debt, and we're paying over $1 trillion, in interest alone, on the debt. That interest never sleeps. It is a ticking time bomb, for us. So what do we do about that? But you look at all these things. How do we solve this issue? Because there are things, Chris, as you're pointing out. I mean, some of these things are coming to a head here. We're coming up on November 1. We're coming up on SNAP benefits. So there are people there that depend upon those benefits. They're going to be out, they won't have any benefits coming up. I'm not sure everybody on there should be on there, but there are people who are needy and who need to be on there. I'm concerned really about, how you continue to pay the military, how you continue to pay, how are you going to pay, air traffic controllers and TSA personnel? What are you going to do about that to get them something so that they don't, our whole air traffic system and air travel don't get all gummed up and all these kind of things. There's a lot of reverberations about these things that do concern me, but on the other hand, it is an opportunity to look at this and say, maybe we can look at what do we need and what don't we need in government. Another kind of a dough shot of saying maybe some of the stuff shouldn't come back. I don't know whether or not all the people that Trump riffed will actually get their jobs back. The courts have said, really can't do it or whatever. But Trump wants to see that go to the Supreme Court and let the Supreme Court give him a decision, which he hopes will be in his favor, so he can trim the size of government down even more. More power to him if you can. But something's got to be done. I mean, our government is just, we spend too much money. We've got too much debt. And we have to find a way to fix a system that's just not working well. And it's political, as you said, it's political because this was all, the Republicans were, the thing that they were going to do, right, was a continuing resolution that was going to, last until November 21st. Well, that's less than 4 weeks away now. They've been spending all this time. Even if they voted now, it's only something that lasts about 4 weeks or less. they still then they have that, then the problem will come up again, by the third week of November. So, that's not this, it's no longer really a viable solution, I think, because this is going to go into next week, if not the week after. And so that timeline gets shortened, which means is that we've got a lot of issues here. I think the Republicans are entrenched, and the Democrats seem to be somewhat entrenched. I don't know who's going to blink first. I mean,
well, we've already peeled off a couple Democrats, but still, I think they have enough that can hold out. The question is, if you have the choice between caving on Obamacare subsidies and getting rid of the filibuster, which should it be? Again, I think Democrats may eventually cave, but and just think about it that way. I want to preserve the filibuster, but
Yes.
I just don't know if it's as workable today, because neither side, for a lot of because we got red states, you got blue states. And in either one, those senators don't want to cooperate really with the other. It used to be the Senate was all about compromise, but we live in a very partisan age. And so therefore, I think it's hard to make the filibuster work. It's dependent on people being willing to compromise, though.
There is a word for this. It's just accountability. There's zero accountability with these programs. The fact that we essentially write a blank check to cover all of this insurance cost, and there's no real criteria, there's no incentive to reduce cost. There's no incentive to innovate billing or innovate how we do this. And that's what happens whenever you try to manipulate a private sector service with public sector solutions. I would agree 100%. We have to preserve the filibuster. We can continue to chip away at Obamacare. There are other ways to address it. But once you lose that filibuster, I don't know that you ever get it back. And you have to plan for 5, 10, 20 years from now, whenever you would still want that in place for other fights in the future. So I feel like we have to get back to some semblance of accountability. And if we can't work through this, I don't see an off-ramp either. I would agree that both sides, given what they're both trying to achieve here, there's no off-ramp. So then the question just becomes, will the American people get so fed up that they will demand an outcome? And if they can't demand a quicker solution, then they'll ultimately voice their frustration with their votes at the midterm. I think Democrats are going to pay a price. I don't know that it will be a red wave, but I do not think they're going to pick up the seats that they would otherwise expect to pick up in a midterm election, because they have not provided an alternative. And even in this instance, anybody that looks at this for more than 10 seconds realizes they entered this process disingenuous. This was not an attempt to do anything other than throw out the most ridiculous demand so as to provide what is continued funding for things that I think most people agreed should not be funded. So with that split, I don't see how this ends anytime soon. And I don't see how the Democrats in the long run don't pay the price for this, because what they're fighting for, they seem to be on the wrong side of every 80-20 issue out there. And they are, one thing they're good at spotting the 20.
Yeah. I mean, Dave, wasn't there a time when the Senate was kind of known as the great deliberative body, right? I mean, it's a very different time now than it was before.
And the filibuster was much higher. It was a much tougher standard too. And that you could filibuster judges back in the olden days. They got rid of that.
Was that Harry Reid that kind of came back to bite them?
Yeah, Harry Reid, it was an odd one. So, well, I don't know. Hopefully it'll end soon, though. But part of it, and one more theory on this, sometimes Democrats, they don't oppose shutdowns, but when Republicans are in charge, they're a little more okay with shutdowns. And maybe they feel it's the one way to stop Trump, just shut the government down. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that's also part of this process. Is just that, it's because Trump is the president. The Democrats are also trying to hold firm, because it's once again, we don't like Trump. We're trying to make some of this about Trump, and so therefore we can't give in. And so they're trying to hold firm on this, but I don't think they're gaining any ground on this issue at all. And I mean, what going back to the No Kings rally, I mean, so what? I mean, what's the after effect of the No Kings rally? I mean, it's a news story for a day or two, and now we're moving on to other things because there are other things more important than a bunch of crazy people standing around with these No Kings posters or whatever that half the people don't even understand what they're even talking about, and stuff. So it's a kind of a blip. you know the left gets all excited for a day or two, and they try to get some momentum out of that, but I don't think there's any carryover momentum from that rally at all, from those demonstrations. It's not like there's this big mass movement about anything with that at all. And so many conservative commentators have been picking apart the demonstrations, interviewing people and showing different sides of the thing. It's not what the media has portrayed it to be in any way, shape, or form. Uh, Now, what about? Yeah, I mean, what about just our spending though? I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, Chris, you're talking about accountability. I mean, I think that's a big problem in the government,
Yeah.
is that we become so large. Whatever accountability we may have had at any point in time, it's gone. We just don't have it. There's no real checks and balances. Our annual budget is out of control. We continue to spend far more money than we need to spend or should spend, but we can't seem to figure out how to get a handle of this. Between welfare programs and whatnot. Though I think under this Trump term, the Republicans seem to have taken it a little more seriously again, like they used to. They used to be fiscal hawks, and it looks like they're coming back to that to a certain extent, trying to fight back on this, thankfully. But it's a big road to hoe because there's so much waste in government. Well, can we push this back down? Will we ever see smaller deficits again?
I think we have to, and that's a responsibility of every elected official to have those hard conversations with their constituents and then to have those difficult negotiations. I mean, think about the old adage: if everything's important, then nothing's important. And we've reached a point where everything's important, whether it's, PBS funding in Iraq, or it's, all these other ridiculous USAID programs that were being spent in the name of either goodwill or intelligence collections. If everything's important, then how do we rack and stack which ones were really important, which ones are not important, and which ones can we truly do without? And I think, one way or the other, we have to start having that tough conversation. But ultimately, people have to expect that of public servants. This idea that people go to Congress for a career and that they're only there to ensure that they get reelected was never, in my opinion, the intent of government. It was to go there, do your civic duty, and then move on to an otherwise successful life. But as you have people that are entrenched in the deep state or the bureaucracy that exists now, there's no incentive to solve these problems. There's actually incentive to perpetuate them as long as possible. And instead of eliminating them, it appears as though most people try to benefit from them. I've said it before, we have to eliminate trading while you're in Congress. Do all the trading you want before, do all the trading you want after. But this idea that how they approach committees and committee votes and vote, you have an inherent conflict of interest. You can't possibly try to resolve things that you're going to profit from. And so I feel like the accountability starts with the adults in the room, just basically saying, look, we're going to have winners, we're going to have losers. There's going to be some pain. And then ultimately, if constituents either understand that or are frustrated by that, they exercise their frustration by voting. And you vote people in that will promise to reduce spending, cut the deficit, and look to restore some level of accountability. Because where we're at, this is just not sustainable. And I don't know how we got to this point other than to say we didn't want to cut anything and all we could do was grow. Well, here we are, bloated, slow, and inefficient.
Yeah, I mean, we did, part of the problem was that, COVID created a situation where we just were throwing money at everything, right? We all got checks, to help us, even though not everybody needed the check and everything like this. And then, you push the spending so high that it's hard to get it back down again because it's almost like setting a new baseline, right? I mean, this is what's crazy about our budget always is just that, the agencies are what they get, they try to spend their money by September 30th
Yes.
because they don't want to lose money in the next appropriation. They want to be able to keep that and get more, but they'll throw money at stupid things just to do that. It's like, well, we have to fix that somehow, and I don't know how to fix that, but it's just ridiculous.
I think I mentioned this once before. There's actually incentive to waste. If you get to the end of the fiscal year and you haven't spent your budget, you haven't articulated a need to grow, there will quite literally be a question of you weren't working hard enough. How did you not spend the money that was otherwise given to you? You have to create incentive to save. You have to, across DOD and government, say, okay, if you save 10%, we're going to reward you with something else. Then whether it's you gain trust or you have credibility the next time you ask for more. But right now, I used to joke when I was at the Pentagon, it was like a fire sale. At the end of the fiscal year, people would quite literally come around and be like, hey, what were those projects you wanted to do? Can we fund them now? Can we buy what's needed? And then, we'll figure it out later. And it was this mindset of how do we use the money that's been otherwise provided? Because if we don't use it, we lose it. And then the next year, your job was to have a budget that grew. Well, we're going to need 10 more people. And then that was viewed as good leadership because you were creating jobs, you were expanding your little fiefdom within a section or a department. We have to change that expectation of how do you save, and then how do we incentivize saving as opposed to quite literally incentivize waste.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, I've got a few more things here before we wrap up the show. One, there was this development today about Trump basically calling off any deals and whatnot with Canada after, was it the Ontario? They aired this free trade ad using Reagan,
Yeah.
and that was the Reagan Foundation is not too happy with it. Trump was pretty upset with it. I remember I was in my car when I heard this thing being played on the news, and at first I'm like, wait a minute, this is Reagan. What are we doing here? What's the deal here? So, I don't blame Trump for getting angry. Apparently they've paused the ad because of what's happened here. What do you think about this? This maneuver here. Did Canada? I mean, did these guys overstep here? Is trying to show that even Reagan supported free trade, even though apparently it's taken out of context.
Yeah, well, the context was he was basically talking about these tariffs. He was implementing tariffs on Japan, but then he said he believed in free trade and all. So he used tariffs. Reagan used tariffs. He was a free trader, but and so he was sincere about that. But at the same time, in negotiations, he used the threat of tariffs too. So it's just like Trump. And I don't mind it so much, but I can understand why a lot of Americans would bristle at using Reagan's words against us. I can understand why it's probably wasn't the best thing to do, but
yeah. I think it was petty. I think it was misguided. I don't think Canada has a lot of leverage in this, and I think they're realizing how little leverage they had.
Yeah. All right, something. This is more Marylandish, but Dave, you can always chime in. So, what I'm seeing now are just some polls about Wes Moore, Governor Moore here. We've got an election coming up. I guess it's 2026, right? I mean, he's up and showing that Larry Hogan far more popular than Wes Moore is. Just kind of raising the specter of would Larry Hogan even entertain a run to come back and claim his old job. Hadn't really thought about that. He definitely has the name recognition, and the Democrats just kind of they've run wild since they took over the governor's mansion because they already have the legislature locked down. So we've seen higher fees, taxes raised, all kinds of things going on in Maryland. But what do you think? I mean, I know I know once again, David, you're in Virginia, but I mean, just even thoughts about can the Republicans win back the governor's mansion in 2026? Is Larry Hogan kind of the guy, or does the Republicans have somebody strong to run against Wes Moore? Is Wes Moore in trouble politically?
Well, I think Hogan's going to be very strong. He was a popular governor, and people may miss the Hogan 8 years after 3 so far of Wes Moore. So yeah, I think Hogan could be a very, very big threat. I don't know if he'll do it, but yeah, I think he'd be a threat. And maybe even if Ehrlich was considering it, I don't know if Ehrlich will. I'm sure he could.
I don't see. I mean, Dwight's good friends with Bob Ehrlich, and I mean, Ehrlich tried. He ran several times, and I mean, after he lost, he ran a couple more times. I don't know that I'm not sure that what there's in it for Ehrlich to run. I think he's established himself, post governorship as a very smart guy, credible commentator. He's written some books. I mean, I don't know why he would give that up. He's one of the go-to guys in the Republican Party for advice, support, endorsements, whatever you want to, just showing that I think he's doing even better, post governorship than he did as governor in a lot of ways. I mean, I think his stature has risen even more since he left office. And I don't know that running for office, again, would really benefit him. Hogan, I think that would be just an interesting thing. I mean, he gave it a go. He's trying to find, I think, a path to stay relevant in politics. He was very popular. He would be limited once again, just like he was during his time in office, about what he could do with laws. I mean, he can issue some executive actions and whatnot, but it's the Democrats have done a lot of damage since Hogan left, and somebody's got to we've got to get him out of there, basically, more to slow things down, and try to at least right the ship a little bit. Anyway, all right, last topic. More or less, maybe I'll throw in one other little fun thing here. Now we'll throw it over to Virginia, because we are now getting down to the nitty gritty of the governor's race, as well as lieutenant governor and attorney general. It still seems by polling, I mean, the Schar poll still shows that Spanberger's got a pretty big lead over Winsome Sears. Early voting's been in full force. I don't know. Has it ended yet, Dave?
No.
It's still going on.
Still going, yeah.
So they've got that, but the attorney general's race is different now. I mean, they had a debate, and I think that Jay Jones didn't do himself. He hasn't done himself any good service by how he's handled himself there. And I did see, correct me if I'm wrong, did I not see that John Reed did a debate with an artificial intelligence with like a screen as a
yeah. She wouldn't debate him, and it was kind of fair. The AI gave her positions on different things, and then he responded. So I thought it was a brilliant move by John Reed. So very good, yeah. And I didn't see it, but I heard good things about that. So the AG race, Miyares is up a little. I mean, he should be up big time. After all, he's running against a guy who talked about killing the speaker. But Miyares is up. I think he should hopefully be able to hold on. He should be able. I mean, it shouldn't even be close, but it's the mood we're in now. And then Winsome's closed the gap a bit. Depends on which poll you look at, but she's still slightly behind. And the question is it too little too late? Because she's come on pretty strong, I think, right around the debate and after. But I don't know. I think it'll be close. I don't think it'll be any sort of blowout. But, yeah, I was surprised that when this whole thing started, the campaign started, everyone thought it'd be a blowout with Trump in the White House and all, and it'd be like 2016 17 in Virginia. But Spanberger's proven to be not a very good candidate. So she has not been able to run away with it as everybody thought she would. So that's kind of kept it close. And Winsome has started to get slow going, but then she started to find her footing. So that's why you're looking at a race that's close, but yet Spanberger still seems to be outside the margin of error. But we'll see. I don't think she's going to be able to win if she wins. I don't think she'll be able to pull in Jones. I'm not sure if she'll be able to pull in even Hashmi, the lieutenant governor candidate. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. But and then of course the entire House of Delegates is up for election as well. So
yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, have you seen anything out there in terms of what the predictions are for that?
I don't know. Right now we're like at more like 52-48. So at the 48th spot, I don't know. It's hard to poll a House of Delegates race. I mean, yeah. I don't know if anyone's ever really been able to figure out how to do that. The question comes to, I guess, ticket splitting, how much ticket splitting you may have. So I don't know. We'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, to me it seems like with the Spanberger, if anything is I mean, if she wins the election, it's more like she backed into it.
Yeah,
right?
I think so. Yeah,
it's not that she was a good candidate that people like. Oh yeah, we just love Abigail Spanberger. It's kind of like it's.
Surprisingly, and I didn't know her. She's in the 7th, but I kept hearing what a great candidate she was. And to be honest, I think she's kind of an empty suit. Nothing special about her. I don't see it, but that's just me, and I'm biased. But she can have her own word salads too. And she rambled on about how we need to get prospective employees in contact with employers, and it's just sort of just word salad sometimes from her. So I don't think much of her, but I don't know. I mean, if the polls are right, she'll end up winning. So we'll see.
All right. Okay. Baseball fans, anybody out there?
Sort of.
Yeah. All right. So tonight is what? We're
game one.
We're about 25 minutes away or so from game one. Dodgers, Blue Jays. I'm going to go with Dodger Blue and say that they should take it in 6, if not less. But it's going to be an interesting series because if you saw any of the games or watch any of the results or highlights, you just the Blue Jays, give them credit, first time they've been in a World Series since 1993. Mm-hmm. Dodgers are trying to do a back-to-back, which hasn't been done since the Yankees won over 25 years ago. So, but the way that performance by Shohei Ohtani a week ago was, for a guy who had basically not hit at all during the postseason, what a phenomenal game of hitting and pitching in one game. What a specimen of a player he is. It's like, I don't know how you top that, but if he begins hitting, it's going to be hard. If the Dodgers pitching has been lights out, I mean, they've won 9 out of 10 games in the postseason and 15 out of the last 20 in the regular season. They're rolling. I mean, if you're going to roll, this is the time to roll. So it'll be interesting to see.
And also the politics of it, with our tensions with Canada.
Right.
Imagine if Toronto wins. I mean, that'd be kind of a big story beyond just politics.
Well, here's something I didn't really know. I heard today. I was listening to a baseball podcast, so that the agreements to carry the games, basically stops at the border with the major networks, like with the ESPN or Fox News or Fox Sports. So there's the company is a Sportsnet out of Canada that actually will be anytime when the games go to Toronto, they'll be the ones that'll broadcast, and then I guess the other networks will just pick up their feed. So because the Canadian, they don't get the Canadian ratings into the U.S. rating system, and they're only about 40 million Canadians. But they had for Game 7 with the Mariners, they had they had over 6 million viewers, which
Wow.
was, in a country of that size, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a lot. But it's interesting to see that there's already kind of a thing where our broadcast teams don't actually have a contract to broadcast the games when they'll be in Canada. It'll be coming from a different perspective. Nevertheless, all right. Final thoughts. We're really at the end. David.
Well, I'll be quick. Yeah, thanks for checking my Substack columns. I had 3 columns this week, which is kind of a not a record for me, but I don't usually do that many. I mean, well, no, that is the goal, to do that many. So I finally hit it this week, so that was good.
That's
And
my goal, to post on the AIA website and I get one.
well, and otherwise, yeah, doing good and looking forward to hopefully a good World Series. But yeah, that's about it.
All right, Chris.
Well, we got a lot going on. The campaign is starting to pick up a ton of momentum, which is exciting. So my wife is in Ocean City right now with Dwight at the Maryland Federation Republican Women's Convention. I know she's going to enjoy herself there, and she was looking forward to the convention tomorrow. But we're settling into a campaign battle rhythm that is it's designed to optimize our volunteers, supporters, and our time. So on Mondays every week, I'm going to do a town hall at a different VFW or American Legion post. And what that'll be is primarily, if it's open to the public, then we'll push it out as far and wide as we can. If it's not, I can bring in a limited number of guests as a member of both the VFW and the American Legion. So that'll be every Monday. We're going to align it to Monday Night Football. So if the forum starts to fall apart, we'll just turn and watch the game. But so every Monday will be a town hall meeting. Tuesday nights have become our campaign sync and volunteer training. And then every weekend, Saturday is what I call now CD6 Saturdays. And I try to get out to at least 2 or 3 of the counties and spend some time at an event, local outreach of some sort, but do something on a Saturday. And then every Sunday is now what's called Yard Sign Sundays, and try to hit one county in particular and do selective yard sign placement, either with volunteers or specific locations for the large 4x8 signs. So that's the emerging battle rhythm. We've got a couple of really good events coming up. We've got an event coming up in a week or two. We have 2 events in Frederick, one at Holly Hills. It's a golf scramble. We've got another event that's going to be like a living room, wine and cheese meet and greet. We've got an event coming up at Barking Mad on November 12th, right after Marine Corps Birthday and Veterans Day, which are all going to be jam-packed events. We've got a couple of gun bashes coming up in Allegheny, Washington County. These should be fun. We're going to partner with some rod and rifle clubs to do a shoot, and then give away some raffles for some guns, which I'm really looking forward to. Having spent the day at a Marine Corps retirement, I'm sort of looking forward to that again. And then lastly, we got a big fundraiser coming up in January at the Congressional Country Club. And that's we were trying to get that in the fourth quarter, but there's just so much planning because of the size and scale of it. We're going to do it in January. So that is it in a nutshell. Thanks for having me tonight. I look forward to these every week now. I genuinely enjoy having these conversations.
Well, thank you guys. You guys did a great job tonight. I thought we had a good discussion and everything too. My final thought will just be shame on Catholic University of America and their administrators for what they did recently. Is that so there's an organization called Students Supporting Israel that apparently had a heck of a time just even getting formed to begin with, and they had a little memorial for the Hamas Israel, to basically support Israel. They had little Israel flags, little small ones on a display, just to kind of honor those that have been killed and were taken hostage and whatnot. And lo and behold, the administrators came in there and they removed the entire display, took the flags and then trashed them, saying that having those flags violated the flag policy of Catholic University of America, which only allowed for the American flag, the District of Columbia flag, and the Vatican flag. And
Not the trans flag.
yeah.
They probably have the trans flag on.
I wouldn't be surprised. The guy who the guy who's the president and founder, this Felipe Avila, I emailed with him after I saw a press release, and he sent a picture of the flags they found them, trash and whatnot, and they're just small little things. And they had another common area, and they said, those are only flags that are allowed to be flown in common areas. But he had a picture of some place that apparently is some common room of some sort, and they had one of those things where you have like flags of the world, mini flags, including the Palestinian flag. But that was okay. Right. But here's the worst part of the story is that they took this thing down on October 7th. And they didn't realize. They were so tone deaf. They didn't understand anything. And the president of the university had to apologize. They didn't realize. They didn't realize, and they just stepped in it all the way through. So shame on them. I think the late Mal Klein, my former colleague, he spent a lot of time over and he was a devoted devout Catholic, but for years he spent time going after Catholic universities and colleges and calling them out, saying that for once that he said we're Catholic in name only, using the Sino or Sino, whatever you want to call it. And I can't remember, it's been so long now, whether or not Catholic was on that list. But there are conservative Catholic colleges and universities that are good, and then there's a ton of them that are just way off base, unfortunately. And so I mean, Mal would relish in all of this if he was still around. All right, guys, everybody, thank you, everyone out there, for joining us tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Dwight should be back next week, and we'll have our usual meandering program.
No one mentioned Spiro Agnew tonight.
That's right. No Spiro Agnew. No talk about vegetables and candy price.
He usually holds up some kind of candy.
Or cars.
Yeah. So I thought we kept it pretty focused tonight. I appreciate all your input on that. Was fabulous. So thanks a lot. We will. I don't think I have. I'm not going to play if that's the ending of the Masoni's thing. I'm not playing it. So okay. Yeah. Good night, guys. Good night, everybody. We'll see you again next week.
Have a good night.
All right. See you. Have a good one.
How do I? Okay. I think that was it.
Let's go down to Masoni's, where Italian cuisine shines. Let's go down to Masoni's, we'll have a good old time. Homemade pasta at Masoni's, sauces fresh and fine. Good friends gather at Masoni's, join us anytime. Taste the pizza at Masoni's, the flavor so divine. Bring your good times, appetite, join us anytime. Homemade ice cream at Masoni's, freshly churned each time. Bring your laughter and your friends, joy is what you'll find.